Right through the garden tombs, the Damascus Gate. Right through here.
Yeah.
Through the old city playing.
It's pretty special.
Here, which is done here in an art form. And then you have his chest, and his arms, and his fingers, and his legs. Can you see that? Yeah. And now you can see also the back. This is his head here. This is a water stain. That's his head, his neck, his shoulders, his back, his buttocks, and his legs. Okay? So it's a very unusual image where you have a person front and back on the cloth. Okay? Welcome.
Thank you.
So this cloth then is highly controversial. There are people who say it was produced in the Middle Ages, and there are people who claim, well, that this cloth comes from the tomb of Jesus, 200 yards from the original, right? And we don't take sides in this debate. We leave that up for grabs, for you to decide, all the visitors. Because I imagine you're kind of half believing, 3/4 believing, or 100% believing people, right?
Yes.
And then, but we also have atheists and agnostics coming in here, and people that don't share anything with the Christian viewpoint, so Jews and Muslims, and we have all kinds of everybody, secularized Europeans. Listen up, England, and so we leave it open for them. And I actually take another position. I say that I think Leonardo da Vinci did it. And this way, it's easy for them to understand that we don't have an agenda about dating it, okay? If you're mad at me for saying that, you can argue against me and I will help you. So, the man on the shroud is dressed with a whole series of different wounds. That's the way he's presented. And some of the experts claim to have found 117 wounds from a Roman flagrum. That was a stick with 3 thongs, and at the end of which were either double lead balls or pieces of bone. And we have replicas upstairs for you to see. Now, if you divided 117 by 3, what number will you come up with?
39.
39, very good. Can we hire that lady? So, St. Paul said that he was scourged a number of occasions, I think 4 or 5, and each time 40 minus 1. An interesting number, 39. He has a crown of thorns, which interestingly is a complete helmet, not the traditional little circle around above his ears like you can buy from the Via Dolorosa. And that was actually how the Middle-aged people understood kings were crowned. But in fact, historically, we know now that kings in ancient times were crowned with a complete head cover. It's not like all the little art and pictures around there that we see. So how did the medieval people get it right if they're the ones that did it?
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting question. He's got a broken nose cartilage, a pierced side with post-mortem blood represented. So it's not unknown in literature accounts of people who were finished off in their last agony to save them pain, you know. But this case is not a finishing off, this is after death. Kind of interesting. There's only one case we know historically, and it happened 200 yards from here on Golgotha. You know? Then there are piercings on his wrists and his feet corresponding to Roman-style crucifixion. Right? So you've probably heard of that combination of ones before sometime, I imagine.
Yes.
Right? And for this reason then, even the medieval daters will say this is a Christ-like image. So we can agree on that. Okay? Good. Now, opposition to the idea that it came from the tomb mounted severely in the last century, particularly 20 years ago, when this piece of the cloth was used for carbon-14 dating in Zurich, Oxford, and Colorado.
Is it 20 years ago?
Exactly. That's how fast we get older. The media kept pushing it, so it sounded like it happened last year because they keep pushing it all the time, you see. And I used to take 10 minutes to explain it, because I don't mind if you're atheist or agnostic when you come into this museum for its purpose. But I do care if you have a dogmatic belief in the carbon-14 dating test, which has been completely dismounted by scientists for years. But only last Holy Saturday, the BBC broadcast a documentary with scientists from the original test who basically exposed the inadequacy of the test and its invalidity for dating the shroud. And therefore it has crumbled like a house of cards. And so I don't spend 10 minutes explaining any more, but if people want me to go into that, I will after the explanation. I don't want to take 10 minutes now for that. Okay? Good. Now, so the carbon-14 dating test, which dated the shroud, the flax plants from which the linen is produced, people from the north of Ireland know about flax, that they dated them to the years 1260 to 1390. So basically that's more or less a fat chance that that could be in the tomb of Christ. It came 1300 years too late. But that test now is out. So that understanding has fallen. Okay? Now let's come back to the image itself. The image has some amazing features. There's a chair there, somebody wants to sit down. There's a couple more chairs upstairs. It's terrible to have a complaining chair that complains that its existential purpose was not fulfilled. So you can move the chair up here a little bit, somebody can sit down. Move over here, so very good. Now, very good. You can sit on our luxurious marble seats there. The image has some other features of realism which are extraordinary. There are little blood. I'm sorry, I have a limited brain, so I have a problem when other people are talking. I can't talk. So, just so you understand, that's the rule of the game here when I'm presenting. Now, there are little blood trickles at the back of the head, and obviously from the wounds, the major wounds from the mouth, also from the side. And all of these flows also from another liquid called oedema fluid, which comes from asphyxiated lungs and which can be found at the mouth and at the side wound. These fluids follow the law of gravity. And you say, well, Padre, what's the big deal? Everything falls according to the law of gravity. Well, maybe not. For example, Look at this beautiful picture we have here of the crucifixion done by Velasquez. Can you see it? You need my glasses? Very good, very good. I also find some people who can see it immediately. Very good. Now maybe the blood flows upwards. How come? Because Velasquez's brush went upwards. You get it? And the amazing thing is that here, all the flows follow the law of gravity in detail. And because of this, plus the anatomical realism of the image, with aspects also that were unknown in medieval times, and other aspects like light, the experts of these studies, even the medieval daters, admit that this image could not have been made freehand. It did require the presence of a body just like this body, with all its wounds. Whether they were inflicted before or after death is left up for grabs, since we're not going to date it to Jesus' time. That's up to you to decide afterwards. But there's a common understanding that there had to be a real body. And because of that, you will find in most documentaries done about the shroud that want a medieval date, that they have a little chapter in there telling you how they were able to get a crucified body in the Middle Ages, even though it was 8 centuries outlawed. Okay? Good. So there was a real body involved. We need to remember this when we go upstairs for the final part of the exhibition, because upstairs we have the latest development about the image, which is the hologram development. That means we have a 3D light image of the body of the image from the shroud. And this was done by Dutch scientists in the last 2 years, and we have one of the only 3 exposed in the whole world at this moment. And you're going to see that in a little bit. Okay, so start getting excited. Now, another feature of the image before the hologram development was that they knew since 110 years ago that it's a negative, a photographic negative. And you couple that with the fact that this image is very unique in its content. Well, it's not unique, Father, it's a Christ image. Okay, so it's not unique, it's a Christ image, but it is unique because it's a unique Christ image. In the history of art, you do not have a naked Christ in those times. You see his fingers and his face, and nothing more than an cloistered nun. But here, you have it totally naked, and not just the front, but also back. You can even see his buttocks clearly. And you can see that very clearly in the hologram. So you say, well, where was the piety? I can understand it with present-day Hollywood criteria. Where was the piety? Where was the respect, the veneration that was typical? So it's a very unique image in its content and in its technicality, because of the characteristics of a photographic negative and the hologram, the 3D aspect of it. So then, in that sense, in the history of images, of art, for example, if you look here at the Pietà of Michelangelo, this is obviously a masterpiece of one of the world's greatest sculptors. So it represents a peak moment in his career, and maybe it goes on to influence further works of his like Moses or other schools of sculpture. But also Michelangelo's school of sculpture doesn't stand on itself. He stands on the shoulders of others before him. So in this sense, this work of art is a peak of a whole process. You understand? Whereas this here stands alone, like a 10 square feet island in the middle of the Atlantic that's 50 miles high and doesn't have anything else around, and you say, how did that thing get there? So in the history of art, that stands out in that way. So how did this image get there? Now, we don't have an answer to that question, but yet the very question itself is so intriguing that it raises huge questions about its origin. Okay, doke? With that, now we're going to move up to the most difficult part logistically, because it's very narrow. So please concentrate, people move up close to this panel, the map, and some can sit on the Can everybody see? Okay, I want to emphasize one word here at the beginning, and that is presumed. A presumed route of the shroud. And I'll just give you the bottom line.